Okay, hey, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. This is the Fed Data Check weekly webinar. I'm Bob Hartford. It is going to be on the. We didn't get through all of the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources webinar from a couple weeks ago, so we're finishing that up today. If you did want to review, or if you weren't here for the first one, if you go to YouTube. Hey, by the way, one thing too, let me start off. We do offer CLP points, continuous learning points for this. If to do that though, keep the GoToWebinar up on your main screen and answer the poll questions. So that's going to increase what's known as your GoToWebinar interest rating. But anyway, here I am at YouTube. If I type in Fed Data Check, there's our Fed Data Check channel. Click on that. And if you could subscribe to that, we would sure appreciate it. We're at 39 now. When we get to 100, we get to lose this wacky URL here and replace it with Fed Data Check. Anyway, that would be right there. Fair Opportunity Limited Sources. That's the first one on this topic that we did a couple weeks ago. Okay. So keep that GoToWebinar, your screen share on your main screen, and answer the poll questions if you would to get the CLP point. Okay, the agenda. What we're going to do, we covered these last time. So I'm not going to do that. We'll come back and circle back later, but we're going to look on the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources. The final 3 codes available, there are 8 in total. The first 5 are if you do not compete the delivery order BPA call. Then you have 2 to indicate that you did compete the delivery order BPA call, and 1 that's a special not competed code. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and type those in. If you want to talk, make a comment, raise your hand. I'd like to keep these as interactive as possible. Just to state something obvious here, when you're let's just use a Part 8 BPA call as an example. Conceptually, there's a 2-part test as to whether a Part 8 BPA call counts as competed or not. 1, the Part 8 BPA, the setup has to be competed. And 2, and let's say you have 5 vendors on a multiple award Part 8 BPA. So that's hurdle 1. And then hurdle 2 is you also have to compete the call. All of those vendors, as we'll see, have to be notified and be eligible to submit a bid when the calls go out. Okay, and that's what the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field is all about. The extent competed field controls whether the Part 8 BPA gets classified as competed or not, and then the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field is what controls delineating whether the individual calls against that BPA count as competed. Okay, so let's take a look at when you would, there are 2, if you look in the data dictionary, let's do that. Incidentally, I had a few, I think I mentioned earlier, I had a few technical difficulties setting up, but it seems to be going okay. We will pull up the data dictionary for Fair Opportunity Limited Sources. Wrong one. It's the manual. That's the data dictionary. Fair opportunity limited. If you click on that in the data dictionary, it hyperlinks you down there. So we went through these first 5: urgency, only one source, follow-on action, minimum guarantee, other statutory authority. If you use one of those codes, you're saying your delivery order against a multiple award IDC or your BPA call, your Part A BPA call was not competed. Use one of those first 5. You're saying, irrespective of what we did on the IDV, the order or call was not competed. So now we're down here into these 2. Let's talk about these 2 next, which is what you're signaling is you did compete at the order call level. Okay, when do you not code fair opportunity given? Well, one example is if you used let's say on a Part 8 BPA, if that was full and open, but your acquisition strategy was I'm going to limit sources on the BPA call and make it an 8A competed set aside. That would be one example where you would not be fair opportunity given. Fair opportunity given means everybody on the associated with a multiple award or single award vehicle was given a fair chance to win the order or call. You got 10 people on the Part 8 BPA, 10 vendors had a chance to bid on and win the call. That's what fair opportunity means. Okay, so when would you not do it? Well, you go from your 10 vendors on the Part 8 BPA, and you only make it available to bid on those who are in the 8A program. You can do that, just don't use fair as the code. For order calls that limited sources via an 8A competitive set aside, set the fair opportunity limited sources field to CSA, and then set the type of set aside value to 8A competed. All right, let's take a look at an example on how on that. Cookie, did you have a comment or a question? Okay. If I look at this award here, this federal supply schedule, we're going to look at an example where they put in fair opportunity, but they shouldn't have. Okay, there was no set aside on this federal supply schedule, as you can see here. Full and open competition. Now let's see what happened when they issued a order or call against that. Well, let's see here. Okay, my point on this one here actually is not that they put in fair, but this is a delivery order against that federal supply schedule that was issued under full and open competition, no set aside. This delivery order went to an SBA certified 8A program participant. They cite other statutory authority here in the fair opportunity, and they received 2 offers. My guess is what they really meant was that, given that they had 2 offers, was they really meant to put competitive set aside here. Not fair, not other statutory authority, and it wouldn't have been fair opportunity given. That's a guess, but we've seen that a lot where people don't code the interaction between fair opportunity limited sources and type of set aside properly. So this looks like an 8A competed award, in which case that should have been competitive set aside. Okay, when do you code fair? If the extent competed value in the BPA is full and open after exclusion of sources and competed under SAP, or competed under SAP. So one of those three. On the BPA, you use full and open. You use full and open after exclusion of sources, or you used competed under simplified acquisition procedures. So you competed the BPA. Sources were not limited going down to the BPA call. So 84056 does not apply. Let's take a look at that. 84056. Acquisition.gov. I like the full screen. Takes a little longer to get there, but it's easy to read once you do. 84056. Limiting sources. Okay, so when do you use fair? The BPA again was competed, and you're not limiting sources through urgent and compelling. Only one source is capable of providing the supplies in the interest of economy and efficiency. The new work is a follow-on. So if you didn't limit it via one of these three choices, and you competed the BPA, then put fair in the fair opportunity limited sources field. Now, if it's a BPA call against a single award BPA, and again, that BPA was competed, you automatically put fair opportunity given. Any comments on that? That's a key point. So it's what we're saying, and this actually is in NASA Suit says the same thing in their GSA Advantage documentation. I may not have that available, but someone showed that to me recently on a separate issue. And actually, I will include that because the GSA Advantage, if anyone's familiar with that program, those were all set up as single award BPAs. Is anyone familiar with the GSA Advantage program? And in the documentation that was given to me, and I'll send it out to you tomorrow or later today, was that if you order off of a GSA Advantage against one of those single award BPAs, you shouldn't have to punish yourself by coding it as a not competed call. Therefore, what they say, put fair opportunity given. On a competed single award BPA, when you issue those calls against it, you are giving a chance for every vendor to compete for the award. It's only one vendor, but everyone's being given a chance. So put fair. We can take a look at it. 84056C3, and this is what the GSA Advantage cited as a justification for putting fair when you go through that program. 84053C1. Ordering from BPAs, single award BPAs. If the ordering activity establishes a single award BPA, authorized users may place the order directly under the established BPA when the need for the supplier services arises. All right. Teresa, I've unmuted you. If you could agree, this is how we code ours from awards that were written against the GSA contract.
Hi, Bob. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually how we've been coding ours because it's already been competed on the front end. So it still it's still a competition, even though we do only have one holder on that we're using.
Right.
So that's the way we've coded ours, and we don't really seem to have any problem with that. And I don't think that that type of award goes on the one bid, right? Those aren't showing up on the one bids, right?
Now that's a good question. My answer to that, I'd have to
for another topic.
But they do; those competitive one bids do exclude.
Don't they exclude BPA calls?
They do. It's
yeah,
Part
I thought that. Okay.
Part A BPA, single award Part A BPA calls are excluded. So in
Okay.
other words, you don't get penalized on the one bids. On that, you do if it's a Part 13.
Right.
That's the distinction on that. And I'll double check that. I'll confirm that tomorrow in an email after this. I'm 99.9% sure on that. Thanks, Terry. Let me mute you, and I'm going to go to Candace Woods. Candy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, so you're not so sure that GSA Advantage are, in fact, single award BPAs. I believe they are. GSA Advantage. Single award BPAs. Yeah, I'm going to have, oh, wait a minute. This is the one I was looking for, this PDF. Let's take a look at this. This is what, I forgot who it was who sent this to me. GSA, maybe this is an old PDF, but this was the, and I looked at one and it was a single award BPA. This isn't the thing, though.
That's a specific
No.
BPA, though, is what that is. I was under the impression that if you went to GSA Advantage, that's where you could go to find, it's mainly commodities from the FSS schedule holders.
Unfortunately, I don't have that. I'm going to have to dig that up. So at least one, yeah, I checked one of the, someone actually called, this is what it was. Someone called me and asked me a specific question, how do I code this award? And then she gave me the GSA Advantage PDF, which said at least some of them, if not all of them, are single award, competed single award BPAs. So let me double check my facts on that and send an email out to everyone afterwards. That wasn't your understanding, in other words, Candace. You think that those are actually multiple awards?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the question is whether some are, all are, or none are. But at least one is the one I checked. let me double check that. Thanks. Okay. All right. So we're in sync here so far. You compete the BPA. Everybody gets a chance to bid on the call. Now, if there's only one person on the BPA, that's great. Well, at least for this, that's fine. Fair. Now, the point on a couple of extra points, BPA calls against multiple award Part A BPAs. You can look at the requirements here. I give the FAR section. Provide an RFQ to all BPA holders. or if it is below the SAT, ensure that requisite information is available. Feel free if anyone has a comment on this. Delivery orders against multiple award IDCs. Delivery orders against single award IDCs, it's not applicable right here. So fair opportunity, you don't fill it in. Whether it's competed or not drives off of the how the IDC was, whether that was competed or not. So to be consistent, or it might make it more complicated, you think they would do the same thing on a Part 8 BPA call against the single award Part 8 BPA. They would just make it not applicable. If the single award Part 8 BPA was competed, then all the calls against her are competed. That's what's going on here, but they don't do that. So you have to fill it in yourself. But if it's a delivery order against a multiple award IDC, the contracting officer must provide each awardee a fair opportunity to be considered for each order exceeding $3,500. Except as provided under this section. So again, to put FAR, fair, in the fair opportunity limited sources field, if it's above $3,500 and it's a delivery order against a multiple award IDC, everyone has to be given a chance to bid. Delivery orders against FSSs and GWACs. Here's the controlling FAR section here. I just pulled out some blips. Below the SAT, survey 3 scheduled contractors via GSA Advantage. Above the SAT, post on eBuy. You do those things, put fair in the fair opportunity limited sources field. Any comments out there? A lot of people here have done this themselves. If I missed something, if that overview is lacking in some respect, let me know. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's do this poll here, kind of confirming what we were just talking about. Let's see if you agree with that concept, which is if it's a single award, if the IDV was single award and it was competed, then just automatically put fair, FAIR, in the fair opportunity limited sources field. You don't even have to think about it. But what people do is they get confused and they put FOO, follow-on action following competed initial action. And that means it counts as not competed. So don't do that. Okay, I do have one I do not agree. I do have one out there. If that person would like to make a comment on that, that'd be great. Okay, I'm going to close that up and distribute the results. Okay, looks like everyone but one person thought just don't even think about it. Just put fair opportunity in there. If anyone who doesn't agree with that has a comment and would like to voice that to the group, that'd be great. Okay. And I'm going to look for that GSA Advantage handout. See if I can. Okay. So that was the first one where you coded as competed. Fair. Everyone, everyone gets a chance. There were some other ones where you survey 3 people if it was below the SAT, but and a general concept there. How about competitive set-aside? When do you use that? If you look at this one, when conducting FAR 19502-4A, it goes back to, if I'm not mistaken, that Small Business Act of 2010 that gave the authority on this. When conducting multiple award procurements using full and open competition, you then limit sources, reserve one or more contract awards identified in section FAR 19A3. Go out and look at that. Now let's look at this one, 19502. Ooh, 19502 4A. Yeah, in accordance with public law, may at their discretion, when conducting multiple award procurements using full and open competition, reserve one or more contract awards for any of the small businesses identified in 19A3. Those are the hub zone. 8A, hub zone, service disabled veteran, economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, and women-owned small business. The socioeconomic set-aside. Okay, so you got, when do you not code CSA? When the vendor, I gave one example, when the vendor is other than small business at the time of award. That makes sense, right? We can look at this example. I tried to set up this PowerPoint deck to show when do you don't do it, and then when do you do it in terms of these various fair opportunity code values. Okay, if I scroll down on this award, the CO determination of business size is OTSB, and they have a competitive set-aside, small business set-aside total. So something's out of whack there. You can't have a small business set-aside, and you know, it's somewhat obvious. But anyway, these fields are out of sync here. You got a competitive set-aside here. You got to see small business here. Okay, when do you code CSA? Relative to the IDV, you are limiting sources. And we'll take a look at an example here. So here's one. The reference IDV did not use a set-aside, and then the order did use a set-aside. So the funnel is getting smaller. The number of people on the vehicle is smaller than the number of people who are eligible to bid on the call or order. So if I look at the federal supply schedule here, these are always full and open, right? I mean, virtually unheard of when they're not. Full and open, multiple award vehicle, multiple award. And now let's look at what happened on the call here, or order. This would be an order referencing that full and open federal supply schedule. And the acquisition strategy involved doing a competitive set-aside, and only the small business vendors on that federal, on that vehicle could bid. They did get one offer, but all the small businesses could bid if they chose. So that's one way of going from a wide open on the IDV down to a small business funnel on the order. Now here's another one where they started off with a small business set-aside on the IDV, and then they shrunk it even further on the order to an 8A competed. So if I look at this NASA SOUP vehicle, this GWAC. It is a multiple award vehicle, and it was a small business set-aside, or at least this vendor got on it as a small business set-aside. Now, if you look at an associated order against that, it further restricted it to an 8A competed on the delivery order. So this vendor here, they got on the GWAC via a small business set-aside. And then they won this particular order through an even more restricted, more limiting of sources, 8A competed. Let's see if we have any questions here. Candace, I'll unmute you here. When do you not code CSA? It is a procurement strategy determined during acquisition planning. If a vendor was other than small, they would not have been considered. You don't code as CSA if you do not do a set-aside. That is correct.
Okay, because what you said there is you wouldn't code it as a competitive small business set-aside when the vendor is other than a small business. So the example that you gave was an issue with the coding of business size, not necessarily with did they do a set-aside.
So they probably coded it right. It probably was a competitive set-aside. It did go to that vendor through whatever it was. They just goofed on the CO business size determination. Is what probably what happened. Is what you're saying.
Right. That was what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, what? Something's out of sync there.
Mm-hmm.
So right. So Candace is right. It's not necessarily that competitive set-aside was wrong there. You either had to change that to something else, fair opportunity given, or you could also make it the CAR consistent by going down and setting the CO determination of business size. Right. I think I checked on that, but they weren't. They were not a small business when I saw it when they made the award, but maybe I didn't check that.
Well,
Okay.
It makes me wonder, too, if it's an older record, because nowadays I believe that FPDS will validate on the business size that the socioeconomics that's pulled in from SAM when you attempt to do a set-aside. So if you said you did a SDVOSB and the veteran doesn't show as being SDVOSB, it's not going to validate. So it makes me think that record might be an older one.
Right. Well, that could be on the socioeconomic status, but we still see plenty of mismatches between the CO determination of business size in FPDS and G and the small business designation for the NAICS and SAM.
I was talking more along the lines of saying you did a set aside to a certain economic category.
Right.
When the vendor isn't in that socioeconomic category. The other one, because FPDS lets you code it however you want, doesn't really have a validation for that. But one
tricky part on that, though, would be what if you submitted your bid 9 months ago? I mean, I talked to someone at GSA when they were doing a telecom, and they got 900 bids. I said, well, we could have gotten that a year ago. So you could be, right? So that's what would make it tough when you make the, so let me see, if you make, say, award a definitive contract was and used a service-disabled veteran-owned small business set-aside, you can't just look in Sam then and do the about right, because who knows when the proposal was submitted.
Well, being from the VA, some of our standards are different anyways. So, but I know for the VA, they have to be in that socioeconomic category at the time of award. But I don't believe that FPDS will allow you to validate if the socioeconomic data that has pulled over into the FPDS record from SAM does not support the type of set-aside that you are trying to do.
Okay. Carrie, did you have a comment? Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, on the example that you had just, example number 2, it looks like that was kind of misdone from the beginning where from what I'm looking at. Because when you go to Soup and you're buying a good, there's a specific NICS code you're supposed to use. Now, it looks like they were buying a good which was technically IT, right, which can be sold as a good on Soup, but there are 4 different groups. So if you don't use the right NICS code to begin with, a group could fall under small in one category and not the other. So if you don't use the right category to begin with on the NICS codes in Soup, then yeah, you could have a small business that really wasn't a small business for the actual thing you're buying. Does that make sense?
Okay.
That's what it looks like.
Well, the Soup one I'm saying was done correctly.
If you go back and look at the Soup itself, if you look at the PCS code.
Okay, this one here.
Is it that one or the one you showed us before?
Well,
can you go down to show the NICS code and the PSC?
Yep. Okay. Let's come down to the NICS code here.
Okay, so it was the one prior to that, the one that showed us the new tech.
This one.
It was the first PDF-NG. No, it wasn't up there. It was down at the bottom.
This one. Okay, Terry, let's. I hear you. We're gonna have to. I'm running out of. Let me move on. Terry will come out at the end on that. Okay. All right. So when you code CSA, incidentally, there is no relationship between the type of set-aside on an individual vendor's on the IDV and the type of set-aside on the order call, by the way. But I don't want to give that impression. But the point being, you could go from a wide open, as long as you're limiting sources going from the multiple award vehicle down to the order call, that's when you use that competitive set-aside. And limiting sources to the extent that more than one person can compete on it. You're not doing the sole source, which we're going to get to next. Key point number 1, the limiting sources funnel does not have to be wide open, so no set-aside used on any of the awards on the multiple award vehicle, and then to a small business set-aside, you can keep the funnel going down further to a particular socioeconomic group. Key point, when you set the FOLS, Fair Opportunity Limited Sources, to CSA, don't forget to also set the type of set-aside field. Just an FYI. Let's take a look at this one. So this is a delivery order against the federal supply schedule. Let's come down to the competition section. Everything looks good here. They got 8 offers, small business, competitive set-aside. That's great. Whoop, they didn't set anything here. And I think this is an 8A award. No, they just forgot to set it. So if you do set this, go ahead on up and make sure you set it there. Okay, so that's, now we're on to the last one. So those ones, the FAIR and the CSA we just went through, those are competed at the order call level. Now, how about SS? When do you use SS? You only use SS when you make an 8A sole source award. That's what I'm saying. You know, and you're referencing a multiple award IDC or a multiple award Part 8 BPA. First of all, are 8A sole source awards permitted against something like NASA SEWP? And the answer to that, I think as everybody knows, the answer to that is yes. They call those directed awards. Are sole source task orders permitted? Yes. Based on Section 8A of the Small Business Act, you may award task orders at or under $4 million competitive threshold on a sole source basis. Okay, when do you not code SS? When using a socioeconomic sole source award against a Federal Supply Schedule GWAC that is not an 8A sole source award. You can't do hub zone sole source awards against NASA SEWP. You can code it like that, but you're not supposed to. Let's take a look at one. Well, here's the NASA SEWP GWAC. Let's look at the call order against it. Order against NASA SEWP. I come down to the competition section. I see sole source here, and then I see hub zone sole source. You know, FPDS-NG lets you do that, but it is against the FAR. It's not permitted. And we covered that in a previous webinar. Hi, Denise. Denise is saying we just lost her on all this. Okay, so if we look at this award here, let me look at Denise. Let me do one more. So what are we doing with sole source? We got 50 vendors on a multiple award Part 8 BPA, or we have 50 vendors on a NASA SEWP GWAC. And we want to make an award. We want to pick out an A vendor that we're confident can do the job, and we're going to direct an award to that 8A vendor. That's what we're talking about when we put SS in the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field. Here's an example here. So if I look at this GWAC, Data Federal, they got on this GWAC, Data Federal got on the GWAC via an 8A competed set-aside. So it is a multiple award vehicle. Some of the vendors on this GWAC were done through the GWAC 8A Stars 2 program. So you got a bunch of vendors on this multiple award vehicle who are 8A vendors. Now someone else comes along, says, okay, here's this GWAC out there. There's some SBA certified 8A vendors on it. What I am going to do, housing and urban development, and recently, a few months ago, said, I'm going to submit this proposal to the SBA. I'm going to say I'm going to identify Data Federal. If someone else knows how this works better than me, feel free. But you know, they work with the SBA. They say, look, Data Federal is the one who can do this job. They're an 8A company. SBA and the acquisition strategy is great. We're going to give them a sole source award. through that GWAC vehicle. So I'm going to put SS here, and I'm going to put 8A sole source here. Everything's great in terms of adherence to the FAR, coding in FPDS and G. How is it limited if you have other vendors in that category? Denise, I'm going to unmute you. If you could, if you have can elaborate a little bit more what you're thinking or question.
Well, even in the example that you gave, it's like you
Okay.
singled out a vendor from a host of vendors. And when I'm thinking sole source by the definition of FAR, they have to meet certain qualifications. So
Okay.
if you have a group of vendors, then I can't see, I mean, the way that you explained it makes more sense, but
Okay.
the sole source thing is a thing that I'm getting, the terminology, I guess that's what it is, that I was getting stuck with. Because I'm kind of like, well,
Okay.
how can you call it sole source if I've got 10 people out there and they're all doing the same thing, and they can all be small businesses or 8A companies,
Right.
minority owned or in hub zones, you know. I mean, if you got three
Right.
of them out there, then to me, that's not sole source. I mean, it seems to me that you would have to, it would be a set aside after exclusions to that group of individual, that group of companies,
Right.
in which case it wouldn't be sole source, right?
No, in that case, yeah, it wouldn't be. But in
Okay.
this example with Data Federal, the only
No, I
person
understand it
who
now
has,
that you explained it that way.
okay.
Yeah, I understand it now that you explained it that
Okay.
way. I just didn't understand sole source to be that way.
Gotcha.
I thought it was pretty hard to make a sole source unless someone had a patent on something. There's some other things that they give that
Yeah.
justify sole source. But them being out there amongst a group of people and we just pick and choose and say, oh, this is the one, and I'm going to sole source it to this individual,
Well,
or I mean this company, you know.
right.
That's more
Well,
of
I
a direct
know,
use, right?
I know in NOAA,
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to the small business officer there.
Mm-hmm.
If they do an 8A award and it's under 4 million,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be sole source. They want to flag it. They raise those alerts up, and it goes to the small business officer, and they go, hey, why wasn't this directed to a particular vendor? So, which is, then I think I've read things along those lines. But maybe someone could walk us through this directed 8A award. If someone's on the line who's actually done it, could raise their hand. So that would be an interesting conversation, Denise. But my understanding of how it works is if it's under 4 million, let's say at NOAA, it's almost a round robin effect. They go, look, we have these 5 8A people we're working with, vendors. We want to get them started in contracting. We're going to fairly distribute awards to those 5 in almost a round robin fashion if it's under 4 million. And they communicate with the SBA. The SBA gets involved and says, okay, let's make sure that they can do the job. And that, yeah, so, okay, that's my, thanks, Denise. That's my my attempt there at explaining 8A sole source awards going through the SBA. Again, what's another key part on that, too, is that you can do an 8A sole source award against NASA SOUP if the vendor got on the vehicle through an 8A competed set aside. So that 8A, you funnel down to that 8A sole source when you go look on that multiple award vehicle and you see 8A competed. All right, that's 3. We're moving along here. We're going to be done right around 3. Now here's a final twist here, and this is just something this is really what makes sense to me, so welcome to some comments here. If you look at, going back to the data dictionary, they go, delivery order is referencing a single award IDC. It's not applicable. So again, FPDS&G is just going to assign competed, not competed based on the IDC in that case. But what about a single award Part 8 BPA? That's the question. And what if that single award Part 8 BPA was not competed? Let's take a look at an example here. We said that, I'm throwing around a lot of terms, but we said that if the Part 8 BPA was a single award Part 8 BPA and it was competed, you automatically put fair in the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field. Now here's a Part 8 BPA. I can tell it's Part 8 right there. I'm going to come down to the competition section, and I see it was not competed. Only one source. So for this U.S. Coast Guard Enterprise Voice Network program, they made a single award, Part 8 BPA, and they did not compete it. They said, look, there's only one vendor out there who can do it. So we're reaching into all those federal supply schedules. We're picking out one vendor, and we're giving them this award, this BPA. So then if you look at a call against that BPA, so here's that call. This is a single award, not competed BPA. They put only one source. That looks good to me. So if you have a not competed single award Part 8 BPA, you just match the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field on the call with the BPA. If it was only one source on the BPA, put only one source on the BPA call. Again, what's the context here? Not competed single award BPAs. That's the context. So what makes sense to me and what we're seeing here is the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field are identical between the BPA and the BPA call in this context. Okay, here's what you don't do. And I'll explain why. It's unusual to have these not competed Part 8 BPAs. But here's another Part 8 BPA. And it, again, also has only one source. So, you know, USA Hire was the only one capable of meeting this requirement. Okay. So they made a directed, sole source award, single award, BPA to that vendor. Now let's look at a call against that one. Nothing wrong on that. Well, I'm not sure that's the best practice on that. It used to be an error at some places I worked where you do not competed Part 8, single award Part 8 BPAs. But for this discussion, there's nothing wrong with that BPA as it was awarded, set up, so on. But there is something wrong with this call. Let's come down to the competition section. They put fair opportunity given. So you can't do that because why? Because then this call counts as a competed award, and it's not. Why is it not competed? Well, the BPA was not competed. You can't do a sole source award to a particular vendor, set up a BPA, and then start issuing a lot of calls against it, and and they count as competed. That's, you know, that's going to throw off the statistics and comparisons across organizations. So. Does that make sense? Anyone have any questions on that? I think I have a poll on that. Let's see. You can see if people actually agree with me. Let's see. So see if how many people agree with me. If the Part A BPA was a single award and it was not competed, I can't read my question. Let's see. If the Part A BPA was a single award not competed, should all associated BPA calls have the same FOLS value? Okay, I'm seeing some saying no. It'd be interesting that if you do say no, I'd sure like to hear a comment. Terry, do you have a comment?
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I think they shouldn't be. I think I said yes to this poll, so.
Okay. Good. Let's let the poll ride here a little bit longer. Okay, most people are saying yes. I did have a couple no's. If someone who said no has a comment, we'd love to hear it. Okay. Oh, Candace, do you have a disagreement with that?
Well, just that the FAR says that if you're ordering against a single award BPA that you may place the order directly.
Yep.
So so you could, but if you chose not to place the order directly, to me that means maybe you went to some other BPAs that you also had. Sound, you know, not that I would do that because why bother to have a BPA, but I think that you really could go to other BPAs and compete. The FAR doesn't say that you are, so it just says may.
So you have, so you could have 3 not competed BPAs, and then you do a call where you notify those 3 not competed.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know why you would do it that way, but I mean, I was just looking at that, what the FAR says with that you may place the order directly, meaning that you could do otherwise, I guess.
I think that's a great point. I didn't think of that. I'll make a note of that and adjust the PowerPoint accordingly. Okay. Not necessarily. You competed by contacting 3 not competed, sort of. So
which makes you wonder why you wouldn't have done a multiple award BPA to begin with, but you know, COs do some interesting things.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I think everybody's getting what Candace is saying here. So yeah, it looks a little odd putting fair opportunity there, particularly since this one here, we saw that on the one they're referencing, it was not competed, but maybe for whatever reason you set up 3 not competed single award BPAs, but then when you did the call, you sent out a notice to those 3. So you could have done a multiple and put all 3 of them in it. It would have been one way, but maybe you didn't do it that way. Okay. All right. Let me quickly wrap. I do have that here's my GSA Advantage thing that someone sent me. It was in here. Right here. So this is from GSA somewhere. Someone sent it to me. It's a PDF.
But notice there, Bob, that what you're looking at is GSA Advantage Select.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a special program. Advantage. Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, what she was asking me was, GSA Advantage Select establishes pre-competed single award blanket purchase agreements under the GSA multiple award schedule. So we looked at that and said, yeah, by all means, if you do place an order against GSA Advantage Select, put FAIR in the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field, F-A-I-R, because, you know, otherwise you're punishing yourself with a not competed award, and unnecessarily so. And they're saying, hey, look, we pre-competed these. Yeah, they're single award, but, you know, feel free to use them, and that's what I get out of this. And if anyone else has a comment on that, feel free. But that's my documentation for saying if you, not GSA Advantage, GSA Advantage Select, if you do use that, you're doing everything right, and put FAIR in the Fair Opportunity field. Okay, in review, running a little bit over. If you competed the order call, if you feel you competed it, then you're looking at FAIR or CSA in the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field. That's it. Don't put FOO. If you limited the sources via the 8A program, you got two choices. So if it's an 8A order call, you got two choices, CSA or SS. Those are your two. If you competed it, and it's an 8A award, it's a CSA. If it was a sole source, it's an SS. If the order or call was not competed and it was not an 8A sole source, then you got 5 picks. Urgency, only one source, FOO, minimum guarantee, other statutory authority. You can use this for the brand. You can look at our previous webinar. Brand name description would be one case where you would use that. I'm saying now this is under some debate, but as a general rule, or based on what Candace just said, this is under some debate now. But if you did not compete the single award BPA, then you match up the Fair Opportunity Limited Sources field between the call and the BPA. We can one last quick look at the 5 mega rules I had. And these are somewhat redundant than what we just went. If you competed it, FAIR, CSA. If you limited the source, relative to what was available, if you had 10 vendors available on the multiple award vehicle, and then you funneled that down to only 3 could bid on it, well, then you're looking at a competitive set-aside. If you did an 8A sole source, you have only one pick. It's an SS, sole source. And then I said here, never use FOO. Never use follow-on action. Just don't use it. Okay, that's wrong. But it sure is rare. And we did have someone from education who walked us through an example where that was the legitimate pick. But this one should be real rare. And it means you did not compete it, and you gave the order to someone who'd already won an order. Okay, that's it.